When a human hand accidentally brushes against a hot surface, the physical withdrawal occurs in a fraction of a second. Conversely, when a plant detects a bright light source, bending its stem toward that energy requires a slow physical adjustment spanning hours or days. Both actions are responses to stimuli. Stimuli are changes in environmental data, such as fluctuations in light, heat, or gravity, that an organism must detect to survive. To process this continuous stream of environmental data, complex organisms utilize two distinct information routing architectures. The first is a high-speed point-to-point electrical network, and the second a high-latency systemic chemical broadcast. Survival depends on how efficiently an organism translates these signals into action, bridging the gap between detecting an environmental change and executing a physical response. The nervous system acts as the body's low-latency targeted electrical wiring, designed specifically for immediate survival reactions. The fundamental physical cable of this electrical network is the nerve cell, or neuron. This simplified geometric diagram of a single neuron illustrates the hardware's input mechanism. The primary receivers are the dendrites, which are short, branched tips stretching out from the cell body to detect information from the environment. Once a message is acquired, it sets off a chemical reaction that creates an electrical impulse. This impulse travels down the axon, a long cylindrical structure arising from the cell body that carries information toward the next destination. However, this network has a physical limitation. Neurons do not physically touch. They are separated by a synapse, which is the microscopic gap between two nerve cells, across which impulses must pass. To cross this void, the system executes a protocol switch. The electrical impulse at the nerve ending triggers the release of chemical messengers that float across the synapse, sparking a new electrical impulse in the dendrite of the next neuron. This conversion from electrical to chemical ensures that signals do not bounce in endless electrical loops, allowing impulses to be cleanly routed to very specific target muscles or glands. In standard routing paths, neurons conduct messages all the way to the brain, where they are interpreted, but emergency actions cannot wait for cognitive processing. This schematic maps an optimized involuntary circuit known as the reflex arc. The inward journey begins at a receptor. Sensory neurons carry the emergency environmental message from that point directly to the central nervous system. Instead of forwarding the data to the brain for interpretation, the spinal cord intercepts and instantly processes the message. For the outward journey, motor neurons immediately carry the physical command back to an effector, which is the muscle tissue that actually executes the response against the stimulus. The reflex arc sacrifices complex decision-making to achieve pure latency reduction, an evolutionary trade-off that protects the biological hardware from severe physical damage. While electrical impulses are incredibly fast, they carry strict physical limits. After a cell fires, it requires a reset period, meaning it cannot continuously create and transmit unbroken impulses. Furthermore, nerves are physical cables. They only reach the specific tissues they connect with, making it physically impossible to wire into every single cell within a massive biological body. This split-screen diagram compares the targeted neural network with the high-latency, broad-diffusion alternative, the endocrine system. Instead of generating an electrical pulse along a wire, stimulated glands secrete chemical compounds directly into the bloodstream. These chemical messengers are called hormones. This allows for systemic regulation. For example, the thyroid gland uses iodine to secrete thyroxine, a hormone that circulates everywhere to dictate the base metabolic rate of carbohydrates, proteins, and fats across the entire body. Because there is no central brain commanding these chemical volumes, the body relies on this cyclical flowchart, known as a feedback mechanism, to precisely control hormone quantity. If cells in the pancreas detect an increase in blood sugar, they broadcast the hormone insulin to correct it. As the blood sugar level falls, the pancreas detects the normalization and automatically reduces insulin secretion. Hormones solve the electrical wiring problem by utilizing the body's existing fluid dynamics as a universal, self-regulating broadcast channel. Plants present a distinct engineering challenge. How does an organism navigate the physical world and respond to stimuli with absolutely zero neural hardware or muscles? Plants can achieve rapid movement without growth by changing cell shape, as seen in the immediate reaction of a sensitive plant to physical touch. To accomplish this, specific cells alter the amount of water inside them, causing the tissue to either rapidly shrink or swell, creating mechanical movement entirely independent of muscle fibers. More commonly, plants rely on tropisms. A tropism is a directional plant movement determined entirely by the direction of an environmental stimulus, meaning the plant physically grows toward or away from the signal. When the stimulus is light, the response is called phototropism, and it is controlled by a specific chemical hormone called auxin. Auxin is a plant hormone synthesized at the shoot tips that helps cells grow longer. This diagram illustrates the synthesis phase. When the tip of a plant detects incoming light, it immediately produces auxin at the top of the shoot. The hormone then executes a strict spatial logic. Auxin actively diffuses away from the light, accumulating in high concentrations strictly on the shaded side of the stem. Mechanically, this high concentration of auxin forces only the cells on the shaded side to elongate. This asymmetrical growth physically pushes the entire plant to bend directly toward the light source. Plants prove that complex spatial navigation does not require a central processor. It can be achieved entirely through rigorous, localized chemical logic. This three-column matrix compares the distinct biological architectures used for processing environmental data. The nervous system provides localized, rapid-fire responses necessary for immediate mechanical survival and threat evasion. The animal hormonal system handles systemic, feedback-regulated broadcasts necessary to maintain sustained states like metabolism, blood sugar, and development. And plant hormones establish purely chemical gradients that dictate physical form and direction without the need for a centralized brain. In complex animals, the electrical and chemical networks do not compete, they overlap, constantly communicating to cover each other's physical limitations in bandwidth and latency. Biological coordination translates the chaos of physical environmental stimuli into precise, actionable survival data, allowing individual cells to function as a single responsive system.